Chapter 17. The Man on Putney Hill. That night, I spent in a deserted inn that stood at the top of Putney Hill. I found some biscuits and 2 tins of pineapple to eat. Three things were weighing heavily on my mind: the killing of the curate, the whereabouts of the Martians, and the possible fate of my wife. The first gave me no horror, but the memory of it was very disagreeable. The problem of the Martians and the fate of my wife filled me with terror, and the night became painful and intolerable. I found myself praying very hard that if my wife had died in this world, let death have struck painlessly with the blast of heat ray, rather than being a victim to the Martians' hunger for human blood. In the morning, I walked out with the desire to find my wife. I did not know how to find her. As I walked, I came upon a man, armed with a cutlass. He stood silent and motionless as I slowly walked toward him. "Stop!" he cried. His voice was hoarse. "Where'd you come from?" "I come from Mortlake," I said. "I was buried near the pit of the Martians. I have managed to escape." He looked at me, then started and looked with a changed expression. "It is you," said he, "the man from Woking? And you weren't killed at Weybridge?" I recognized him at the same moment. "You are the artilleryman who came into my garden. Good luck," he said. "We are the lucky ones." He put out a hand and I took it. "I crawled upon a drain," he said. "They didn't kill everyone, but it's not even 16 days, and look, your hair is already gray." "Have you seen the Martians?" I said. "I believe they have built a flying machine and are learning to fly." "Fly?" "Yes, fly," he said. "It is all over with humanity," I said. "If they can do that, they will simply go around the world." He nodded. "Aren't you satisfied it is up with humanity?" "I am. It's just like man and ants, and that what we are now to the Martians. We're beaten, we're down, like ants." I stared at him. I still had a vague sense of hope. But if that is so, what is there to live for? The artilleryman looked at me for a moment. "There won't be any more concerts for a million years, no Royal Academy of Arts, and no nice little feeds at restaurants. If it's amusement you seek, I think the game is up." "You mean, I mean that men like me are going on living for the sake of the breed. I tell you, I grim set on living. We aren't going to be finished." You don't mean to say?" "I do. I am going on. Under their feet. I have got it planned. I intend not to be caught and tempted by those creepers. There is food all around, and we have to keep ourselves alive and learn as much about them as we can." I stared, astonished, and impressed deeply by the man's resolution. "What will you do?" I said after a while. "What plans have you made?" "Well, it is like this. We have to invent a life where men can live and breed and are sufficiently secure to bring up the children. I mean, to live underground. I have been thinking about the drains. London is empty, and under it are miles and miles of drains. A few days, rain, and they will become sweet and clean. The big drains are airy enough and big enough for anyone. Then there are cellars, walls, railway tunnels, and subways. You begin to see? We form a band of able bodied and clean minded men. We are not picking up weaklings." He talked more about his plan. There were books, there were models, They must be preserved. My job would be to go to the British Museum and pick up all books on science and ideas. We would have to watch the Martians, keep spies. After learning, we would capture their heat rays and fighting machines and turn them into the Martians. For some time, the daring plans of the artilleryman, his tone and courage completely dominated my mind. We talked like this till dawn. Then we came out of the bushes and, after scanning the sky for the Martians, hurried to the house on Putney Hill, where the soldier had made his lair. It was a coal cellar. It was a bureau of 10 yards long. I could see the gulf between his dreams and his powers. He had taken a whole week to dig a hole, which I could have dug in a day, but I still worked with him, digging till late in the afternoon. Then we decided to rest. From the roof, we could see the river flooded with red weed. The red creeper had spread almost everywhere it could. Beyond Kensington, dense smoke was rising. Later, he gave me an excellent meal, followed by cigar and champagne. After that, we played cards, Strange Mind of Man, Marseille, with the prospects of horrible death and our species on the brink of destruction. We could still have the heart to play cards. After another round of champagne, he dozed, and I went up to the roof to have a view. At first, I just stared across the London Valley. The northern hills were covered with darkness. The fires near Kensington glowed red. The rest of London was black. Looking around, I came back to my senses and awoke to the reality around. I wondered at the changes of the day, and I recalled my mental state from midnight prayer to the foolish card playing. I flung away my cigar. It seemed a traitor to my wife and to my kind. I was filled with remorse. I decided to leave this dreamer to his drink and food and to go on to London. I had the best chance of learning what the Martians had, my fellow men, were doing. Chapter 18. Dead London. After I had parted from the artilleryman, I went down the hill. There was a black dust along the roadway, and the streets were horribly quiet. Going on towards Brompton, I came upon the black powder in the streets and upon dead bodies. I saw altogether a dozen. They had been dead since many days. The black powder covered them all over. The further I penetrated into the London, the greater was the stillness. But it was not the stillness of death, it was the stillness of suspense, of expectation. In South Kensington, the streets were clear of dead and black powder. It was here I first heard the howling. It was like sobbing notes, la la la. When I walked northwards, it grew in volume. It stopped, staring towards Kensington Gardens, wondering at this strange remote wailing. The sound of wailing came from all sides, overcoming me. It forced me to deep thoughts. Why was I wandering alone in this city of the dead? I was weary and hungry, and with great effort I broke into a public house and got food and drink, and slept on the black horsehair sofa I found there. I woke up to the same howling at dusk. I wandered all over till I came upon a standing Martian from whom this yelling came. I watched him for some time, but he did
I came
not move.
upon a racket fighting machine halfway at St. John's Wood Station. I was horrified to see a dead Martian here. I turned and walked blindly towards Primrose Hill. There I saw a third Martian, wrecked and motionless like the others. An insane resolve possessed me. I would die and end it. I marched on recklessly towards the Titan. When I reached the top, I found it was the final and largest place the Martians had made for themselves. Great mounds had been heaped on the crest. When I looked down from the crest of the hill, gigantic machines were lying here and there and scattered about it, some in their overturned war machines, some in the handling machines, and a dozen of them laid in a row, stark and silent. The Martians were all dead. They were slain by the disease bacteria against which their system was
Slain
unprepared.
as the red wheat was being slain, slain after all man's attempt had failed, by the humblest things that God in his wisdom had put upon this earth. For so it came about, these germs and diseases have taken toll of humanity from the beginning of things. But over the centuries we have developed resisting power and have become immune to some of them. But there are no bacteria in Mars. The minute that Martians arrived and drank and fed on us, they were doomed. Here and there they were scattered, nearly 50 altogether, overtaken by death, totally unaware of the reason. Hard for them to understand. The worst was over. Healing would begin now. The people who were saved, scattered over the country, would begin to return. At the thought, I extended my hands towards the sky and began thanking God. Then I knew no more.